Why $1 million milestone is important? When I began as an investor, my first goal was to reach 1 crore. When I began investing, $1 million was probably somewhere between 2.5 and 3 crores. After devaluation of the rupee against the dollar, it became close to 3 crores. But at that time, $1 million was something which we could not even think about. It was beyond our imagination. Even 1 crore, which I set as a target to myself, was a distant dream. On a lighter note, I would think that I would retire if I reached 1 crore. My ambition as an investor was so limited. Probably my vision was so narrow. I thought if I had 1 crore, I could live that life which I wanted. This was 1990. It took me 8 years to reach 1 crore. But even that was quite a scorching pace of return. I would attribute that to higher returns which the market gave, and those higher returns were simply because the valuations at my entry level were extremely cheap. We could buy stocks at 1 and 2 PE. What happens if you're able to buy stocks at 1 and 2 PE? Getting PE expansion becomes easier. And all you need is strong earnings growth. So if the company grows faster and its earnings follow sales growth, PE expansion follows. Sequencing this happened like a breeze. Therefore, we could reach 1 crore very easily in those days. When I reached 1 crore, I still didn't think of $1 million. I thought about 10 crores. 10x was deeply ingrained in my mind in those days. Interestingly, over the next 8 to 10 years, I was able to touch that milestone. Even after reaching that milestone, I was thinking that I should probably think of doubling from there. Let's say make 10 crore into 20 crore. But a conversation with one of my friends changed my perspective. He said, you have done nearly 2 decades of investing. Now you should invest in businesses which will compound better for the next 10 years. And you should think of multi-bagger investing from here. Luckily, once again, it was a bear market. And valuations were very soft in many parts of the market, and I was able to go exactly into those parts of the market and deploy capital. And when I deployed my entire capital in such companies, the subsequent 8 years were pleasantly surprising. What I learned from these 3 phases of 8 years is that you need to be aggressive in pursuing a milestone. That was my lesson. The first 2 happened on my own. The third happened because my friend pushed me. When I started a PMS, the minimum amount was just about to change from 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs. We started only with 50 lakhs. And when we started with 50 lakhs, the goal I set for myself was how many $1 million accounts can I create in it. When you set a goal like that for yourself, you automatically become ambitious for your investors. And this came from the few friends for whom I had managed their portfolios over time. I made them ambitious by setting these larger goals that I set for myself. I thought, why not follow the same approach for all the clients? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we can make such an impact for every single client with whom we work? For me, a professional role was an opportunity to make a difference to others. I did not see a professional role as a great opportunity to make a big difference to myself. If I had to make a big difference to myself, it would always be as an investor and not as a professional. Because being an investor is always more lucrative than being an investment professional. An investment professional should always focus on making a difference to others, and that should be his end goal. I chose that consciously, and I decided that I would set larger goals for others. Over a period of time, we have learned one thing. Most of our clients have crossed 1 crore in their portfolios. So they have not stopped with just the initial sum of 50 lakhs. They keep contributing and they keep participating. As I told you, for me, the moment I crossed 1 crore, I set a much bigger target. In today's economic context, that target is $1 million. So I talk about $1 million to every single client who has crossed 1 crore. The road to $1 million lies in going to a $250,000. So if you are at 1 crore, you look at doubling your capital and doing a little bit more. That's your first milestone. Once you get to a $250,000, you start thinking of how you'll go to $500,000. That's your second port of call, your second milestone. If you keep contributing capital and if you keep participating in the market, this will happen sooner. It is not rocket science. I hope to always make investors focus on their milestone, because if they focus on the milestone and not on the market or on their returns, the market and returns will follow. But if they focus on the returns and the market, they will stall their contribution of capital to their own portfolio, they will participate less, and if they do these two, it's going to take longer to reach the next milestone. So my core focus is on making the investor understand the importance of contribution and participation in their portfolio. In fact, many investors think that they are giving me capital. No, it's not my money, it's your money. And when you give your portfolio more money, and if you do it when the chips are down, you are going to reach the $1 million milestone much faster. Well, if I have a vested interest, it is in making you reach that milestone faster. And $1 million milestone is a very distant milestone when you're at 1 crore, but a $250,000 is not so far. Most people achieve it faster than they imagine because they don't imagine well enough. We imagine it for you simply because that can make a big difference to how fast you reach a $1 million milestone. It is very, very important that a manager or an advisor thinks for the client all the time. And when the manager or advisor thinks of the goals of the client all the time, it shows in the investing that the manager does for the client. So I don't like to think that I made these returns or I am doing this for the client. I like to look at it from the perspective of what the client is doing for himself. And I play the part of a facilitator. I think the mindset in this process is distinctly different, but it makes a world of a difference to the outcome which the client is going to receive. It is Very, very critical for every client who has crossed 1 crore to go to $250,000. And if he does it in reasonable time, then he starts looking at $500,000. Sometimes clients reach $500,000 and even stop investing, but don't take out any money, and compounding takes care of their $1,000,000 dream. Ideally, that's a simplistic way of reaching $1,000,000. As an advisor or manager, my focus is to ensure that somebody who has reached 1 crore goes to $250,000, keeps contributing till he reaches $500,000, and then takes a call whether he wants to still be more ambitious and aggressive, or he's going to just allow compounding to take him from $500,000 to $1,000,000. Now assume that somebody is more ambitious. What can we do for him? He keeps on contributing even after reaching $500,000. So even the $1,000,000 milestone comes quicker to him. But most critically and most importantly, he stops restricting his financial ambitions to $1,000,000. He thinks about much bigger numbers. That is something that happens to probably 10% of the clients. My personal milestone is, can I make 50% of the clients think like that? Can I raise that number? How do I do that? The only way I can do that is in focusing on the priorities of the client, keeping the client in the right frame of mind to participate in the market when the market is irrational, making him behaviorally superior to the rest of the market, making him behaviorally far more enriched than his peers, because he is going to take in a lot of inputs from his peers. When you behaviorally enrich a client, financial enrichment will follow. It's a natural progression. It is consequential. Many people think that financial enrichment will lead to behavioral enrichment. That's wrong. It is behavioral enrichment that leads to financial enrichment. On the road to $1,000,000 milestone, how much behaviorally richer you become is far more important than how much financially richer you become. Because when you become behaviorally far more richer early enough, you become financially far more richer later. Behavior leads to financial success. Now, this is very simple, but 99% of investors don't do it. And my observation is, very few DIY investors know what is the construct to become behaviorally richer. As an investment professional, if you ask me what I pursue as my highest contribution, it is in creating this behavioral enrichment in people. And when I do this, $1,000,000 milestone is not a big number, it is not a tall ask, it is not something everyone cannot achieve, and most importantly, it is only a stepping stone to far bigger things. I wanted to give a thought to what we have spoken in this video. Maybe listen to this video once again and tell us what you think, because this conversation can be life-changing. Thank you very much.